Hello, Shadow Era community, and welcome back to State of the Era, the podcast from the A1 Alliance discussing all things Shadow Era. You are hearing the brilliantly sexy voice of NinjaDucky once again. Sorry for the late episode, but we had some conflicting vacations, holidays, and hot dates to work out to get together in the wee hours of the morning just for you guys. But we managed to get a great crew here today, and we've got an awesome special guest. So hopefully nobody fell asleep at their computers while waiting for this thing to get started. Today here we've got Great Old One, also known as Goo. Alright, so Goo fell asleep. We've also got iClipse.
Hi, guys.
And we've got Wtzky. Did Wtzky also fall asleep?
Okay.
All right, then. Hopefully one of them wakes up in the near future. We've also got Otto7.
Alive and awakened.
And last but certainly not least, our special guest of the day, GondorianDotCom.
Hello, everybody. This is Badu, and I'm sorry to say I have trolled you.
Okay.
That is definitely the GondorianDotCom we all know and love.
Yep, it's me. I'm here.
All right, so today we're going to be talking a lot about the World Championships we've got coming up, and maybe even get a little bit of a sneak peek into the expansion set if we can convince GDC to share with us. So let's go ahead, and before we get started, Gondorian, could we get to know a little bit more about you? How long have you been playing Shadow Era? What is your favorite deck of all time, and where are you from?
Hi, everybody listening at home or in the car or wherever, on the toilet. I don't know. I started playing almost a year ago. It was the end of April 2011. My favorite deck of all time was probably Bainbow's Big Bad Beatdown from 1.26. Had a lot of success with that, apart from when Aeon got in the way and really crippled Bainbow. So, that was a great deck. I enjoyed those times. Since doing more things for Shadow Era and Wolven, I haven't played as much as I used to. So, I should probably try and get more games in. I'm from the UK. In and around the UK, various different places. I'm currently in Cambridge.
Ah, traveling man.
Yeah, moving for jobs.
All right, so let's jump right into talking about the World Championships. I think we're all really excited about that. First of all, we've seen a lot of confusion in the forums about what are the rules for the World Championships, and people are asking questions and new rules are being developed. We will be posting in this discussion thread for the episode a link to the definitive World Championships rules. So if you follow the link in our discussion thread on the Shadow Era forums, you will find the absolute final rules that thread can be referenced. So if anyone's confused about that, please do that. Getting on with the World Championships, though, how do you guys prepare for a 256-person tournament? I mean, that's just massively off the scale of anything we normally play tournament-wise on Shadow Era. What are you guys doing? Are you doing anything special to get ready for this one?
Well, for me, it's just not really that special because I treat it like a normal tournament, but just the only difference is that I'll take a lot more time to prepare my decks, so they are the best decks I have available right now, and I'll use a lot more of my time to do that than in comparison to other tournaments.
For me, it'll just be a matter of figuring out which decks I need to actually bring. With that many people, it's going to be hard to figure out what the meta is, and I want to bring a deck that'll stand up well against a variety of different decks that are out there. So I think the toughest part's going to be what heroes to pick and what decks to actually bring.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think it's very important to bring a deck that can do well versus a variety of heroes, and maybe it's possible to bank on one auto loss and just hoping you don't get that one. But in general, I would avoid having an auto loss matchup.
Yeah, because there's so many games that anyone is going to play if he's going to reach some top finals or semifinals. So he's probably going to find some bad matchup if there is one out there for his hero.
Yeah, I think actually that's kind of the tough thing about a tournament this huge is like, when you can look at maybe a 16 or 32 person tournament and figure out what people are and are not playing. But in a tournament this big and with a lot of people who don't normally play in tournaments playing, there's really no heroes out there that have like no bad matchups. Everybody has something that they're vulnerable to, and we usually just play the heroes that don't see those. For example, Elementalist doesn't see a whole lot of play right now, so Banebow is very good. But if Elementalist shows up, Banebow starts to have problems. So
yeah, I agree. I think it's best to try and search for the thing, the bad matchup you're least likely to get, and so pick a hero that's least likely to have a very bad matchup.
What do you expect to see the most of in the World Championship meta?
Well, as a first example, the example you said about Banebow is a very good example, because I don't think we'll be seeing a lot of Elementalists. Maybe Zeladar, but versus Zeladar it's an even match, it's an even game. And I don't know what's the other weak matchup for Banebow again.
I don't know if he has more than one weak matchup,
Aeon.
to be honest.
And anything with Aeon in is a pain in the ass. So
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's true.
And even more if it has an Earthen Protector behind it. Anyway, there are some counters to it, but there are usually soft counters. Like there were posted some examples. One is Here Be Monsters, so you can delay the opponent's Aeon to get out one turn, and so you have one more turn to charge up ability and get more card advantage to take out that Aeon the turn it comes out.
I suppose you could lay a Death Trap down on turn 5.
Yeah, that's true as well.
That's
But
true.
If you have a look at Sisyphus's Banebow, though, he doesn't struggle that much because he's got a good combination of arrows and Soul Seeker, and he uses his ability really well. So I think Sisyphus used that deck almost exclusively to get to a ranking of 370, and he must have encountered plenty of Aeons out there. So I don't think it's going to be a huge problem.
Well, the thing is, his deck is constructed that way that he always has the board by turn 4, 5, or 6, so that when the turn that Aeon comes out, he can immediately take it out.
Yeah, that's true.
The point with the matchup against Lance is that you're practically it's really difficult to put Wrath of the Forest or Soul Seeker out, because if Stab Thief is played by turn 5 and then you get the hasted Aeon, then Aether Protector comes from behind the latest turn. Because if Aether Protector is played first, then you get the chance to practically kill him with an arrow and with ability. But with Aeon and Aether Protector behind, it's pretty much difficult. And in fact, we had this exact conversation with Sisyphus A1 forums today. And for some reason, he said that he didn't encounter so many Aeon and Aether Protector combos yet.
Anyway, the thing is also at the start of 1.5, a lot of mages were running rampant, but not a lot of lands. And the lands that were played were usually just Raven and Aeon, not Aeon and Earthen Protector. I think that's only a combination that has come up the last 2 weeks or something.
Probably.
That's very true. And actually, I think that the Aeon Earthen Protector combo is somewhat reactionary to Banebow, because like it's been mentioned, with my Banebow, one Aeon is not usually a problem for me. It's only when you get like an Aeon plus an Earthen Protector, if I kill an Aeon and then they play another one right after it or something, that's the only time it really starts to be a problem.
I wouldn't say it's only versus Banebow, because Banebow isn't played that much. It's also very good versus, somewhat versus mages. I know they have Dagger of Unmaking, but
Or Supernova?
Well, the thing is, if they use Supernova, the Aeon will still live. If they,
it depends though, because if they still have their Shadow ability up, the half of the mages in the game can just, actually 3/4 of the mages in the game can just kill it.
But here's one situation. If you play your Earthen Protector and you can buff it with Aeon for that 1 HP, it won't die anymore because of Supernova, and when they play Supernova, your Aeon will die because they did damage to Aeon first. And what happens next is that you get a buffed Aeon because your Earthen Protector didn't die because of the Nova.
Oh, okay, that's true.
So yeah, the new ability of Aeon is very useful in that. Also, what I wanted to say about the Earthen Protector and Aeon combo is that it's very useful versus a lot of heroes actually. I think Elemental is one of those. They have mind control, but if they mind control the Aeon, it just comes back as a bigger
It's
ally.
a bigger Aeon. Yeah.
Yeah, as a bigger Aeon, and the opponent
Which just hurts more when they mind control again.
Yeah, okay, but they have to have the mind control for that as well.
Back-to-back mind controls is a little bit less likely.
Unless you're playing against blanket effects, Celadar.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
Blanket Effects gets mind controls the same way Busty gets Priests of the Light, but that's just because they cheat.
I'll pretend I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I just played
Yes,
You do that.
tournament judge, you heard
turn a
nothing.
blind eye to any cheating.
That's what makes a good tournament organizer in my book. So I guess basically our consensus is that the World Championship meta is going to have pretty much everything, and it's going to be crazy.
Well, I don't think it will have. I mean, it will have probably every hero represented, but I think we're going to see a lot of lands, a lot of mages, and a lot of Zeladar. That's what
I think we're going to see a lot of Moonstalkers also.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But
I think
I don't know. Are people really going to go Moonstalker if they expect a lot of mages?
I don't want to give away.
Yeah, I know it's not good. Yeah,
Uh,
it's not an Outlaws matchup for Moonstalker. That's true, but I still
In
think that
fact-
Moonstalker is in fact not. He doesn't have the advantage versus mages, even if the deck is built correctly.
I used to think that until I faced Wtzky yesterday, but that's a whole nother story.
that's what the whole point of my comment. Anyway,
All right. So without giving away any A1 guild secrets, let's just move on then. So GDC, we've got you on here. What has it been like organizing the World Championships, and what's been the hardest part of getting it all together?
It's been very stressful because we've known for a while that we needed to have a World Championships this year, but Kyle's been busy working on the physical cards. We've all been busy balancing 1.5. So the World Championships just there was no planning of it, no organising. And I'd asked Kyle about it earlier in the year. He said he wanted 1.5 out. He wanted the full set finished before he even thought about doing any big event. Then one Saturday, I had to do a lot of housework, and I had to try and stay away from the forums. So I set myself a challenge. I posted something provocative on there. If I get 100 replies in 12 hours, then something great will happen. And an exclusive is I had no great thing in mind.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I posted that, and then I tried to resist looking at the forums for the 12 hours and get stuck into doing the housework. And I thought, while I'm doing the housework, I'll be able to brainstorm something great to happen. And I checked in about 11 hours in or something, and I saw there were quite a lot of replies, a lot of excitement, and I thought, oh no, I better come up with something great now because everyone was pretty excited. So the hype works. If you tell somebody very limited information, it just seems to make them even more excited. So it was an experiment in marketing. Anyway, with about an hour to go, I had to think about it. What could it be? And I realized, well, we could make it the World Championships. So as a result of that Saturday, I had a lot of housework to do. I've kind of dropped myself in a hole because organising this has been really hard, and I haven't got any spare time anyway. So yeah, I've had to just eat into my sleep really to do it all. But we're almost there now. We're almost at the start.
Anyway,
So-
I was wondering something about the World Championship. Isn't it earlier than last year? I remember the last one finishing in June or something, wasn't it?
Well, that's when the grand finals are, though.
Oh yeah,
for this
okay.
one.
So actually, it started around the same time as it did now.
It might have been slightly later, but I've aimed for that. There was a sweet spot for when to set the grand finals because there's another expansion being worked on,
Oh, yeah,
and
okay.
there's Origins as well at the end of May. So we thought it would be a good time to have it mid-June. Kyle wanted to be around as well, and he's at Origins at the end of May. So mid-June, I thought was the right place to plonk it.
Yeah, okay.
So
I agree.
and then all of the planning and so on, and making sure that everybody can take part, and experience from other events where people can either turn up on the day or they can play over a series of weeks. Well, which I think the ones that have played over a series of weeks have gone better. The Crown tournaments seem to go much more smoothly than ones where everybody's meant to all turn up. That's why it's all spread out, and that's why it's starting quite soon.
Except maybe small tournaments, like the pop-up tournaments, they work just fine, but that's only with 8 to 16 people.
They're small and they're at short notice, and well, the biggest issue is people sign up, then they don't turn up. So a pop-up one is perfect, because if somebody misses that post, then they haven't caused you any trouble.
Yeah.
So that works a lot better. I thought I could have done a pop-up World Championships, but I think
that would have been amazing.
Then you wake up in the morning and it's, oh, we have a new world champion. And you're like, what?
I missed it. No.
Yeah. Isn't the amount of people participating in the world championship like quadrupled or something in comparison to last year?
Well, there were the 3 regional qualifiers, weren't there? And I think...
Yeah, but I can't really remember how many people played in those, actually.
Yeah, I think there was probably 20 to 30 in each.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I played
There's about
in
100
UK.
overall, from memory.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
then we doubled. Still a good way to go.
I guess in the future, maybe we just have more qualifiers and so on. But organising regional ones and having them all on a certain day or something, it's having somebody there to run it that just wasn't really possible. So I plonked the grand finals on Father's Day weekend so that I knew that I'd be free on the Sunday.
Oh yeah, by the way, are you going to ask for help for people to help you in organizing it further? I mean, like being present as a judge or something like that?
Well,
here's a way to promote yourself right now if you need help.
yes, please. Anybody listening to this now, I need a lot of help in various ways, but also for the World Championships as well. And so if you can, if you've got any help that you can offer, such as chasing people who've gone AWOL and so on, or being available on IRC when people are having a match, so that if there's like a dispute and things kick off, then if you know my Skype details and you see me online, then you can ping me there and so on. Just if we all work together, then the World Championships will be a much better experience for everyone. So I'm very open to people helping me out.
So what's your favorite part about being the organized play specialist?
Favorite part? Well, I think it's the impact that I have, because when I started Shadow Era, I love the game, and I thought this is something great. I want to start contributing somehow. And I think originally I made some web page which simulated drawing a hand of cards or something, and then someone posted that you could just do all that with statistics anyway, which rendered that page useless. But that was my first step. And then I think it was people complaining about the rating system, and that's where the 40 card ladder came from. Oh, it was 30 card decks, and everyone was saying, oh, Majaya and so on, it's too consistent. There was a lot of complaints, but no one was doing anything. So I thought, great, I will start up the ladder, and then it went from there. So the most enjoyable thing is just knowing that time I'm spending is making an impact. People are hopefully happier as a result. My family, not so much, but Shadow Era community appreciate it. So
yeah, I remember the first time I visited your site. I think it was for an interview. You did some interviews at the start as well.
That was the other thing. I thought, I'll do something special. I'll start interviewing people, and that worked well. I haven't done an interview for a while. The last interview I did was with myself, actually.
You interviewed yourself?
Yeah, I made a thread. I don't think many people saw this thread. My 6,000th post, where I was on IRC, and I kind of interviewed myself, really.
That's a unique approach.
Yep.
Right.
Best asker of questions, and I'm the best person to answer them, I guess. So, and I can hide any things I don't want to share.
That's true, and you won't badger yourself if you evade a question. So that's pretty smart thinking.
Yeah,
Well, I'm pretty sure talking to yourself is the first sign of insanity.
Can be. Yeah.
Fair enough. Our last question directly for you, Gondorian. Everyone's super excited and pumped about the expansion that's coming out. Is there anything you can tell us about it besides the fact that vampires are going to be in it? Because you've already spoiled that much.
Yeah, that was an April Fool's joke, as you know. And some people believed it and contacted me after the fact because they'd just obviously seen it on the day and not seen that I'd posted that it was April Fool's joke. There will be no new heroes in the expansion. That's already confirmed. Only the two things that we have said will be there is 150 cards, and it will come out in summer 2012, which is deliberately vague.
I suppose it's better to be vague about it than to promise a date and then have it move 6 times. So
Yeah, well, Kyle has been really snowed under with sorting out the physical cards for the first set, so that's pushed us back somewhat. So although he's got a team of programmers, he reviews all the code. If he's not available to review it, then that pushes us back. But he's hired more people, so he thinks that we'll still be on track for the original planned release date, but we've not said when that is yet externally.
Is Kyle actually seeing light at the end of the tunnel with the physical cards? I mean, he has put a lot of time in it so far.
He can't see any light because he's got a big pile of money in the way. So money out of the way, he'll be able to see. He can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Next week, he reckons he will just be reviewing proofs of the cards. He won't have to do any more hard work himself, so he'll be able to get back onto implementing things, reviewing code and so on. So we'll be back on track then. But the physical cards that everybody's paid their money for, that has to take priority. And also he's aiming for Origins to have the worldwide debut, I guess, at that convention. So what was the original question?
Can you give us any hints or spoilers about the expansion?
I almost got out of that. Yeah.
Oh, you weren't getting out of it. I was coming back to it.
There's going to be 15 human allies and 15 shadow allies. I can say that much.
15 human allies and 15 shadow allies total? Like that? There won't be more than that?
That is the breakdown in the set. Classes will still have 10 cards each. So if you do the math, you've got 70 cards there. And
yep, I'm actually doing the math in my head right now.
15 allies on each side, that brings us to 100. Then we've got the usual weapons, armor, neutral abilities, shadow abilities, human abilities. I'm not going to give any more details than that. I'll already be in trouble, I expect. But yeah, so a lot of allies. The idea is to take it from where it is now, which is that there's a certain number of allies to choose from. Really flesh that out so you don't see the same ones all the time. Open up more strategies. Some of them will have new abilities, which will bring in new strategies. And the kind of theme of the set is just the war has intensified. So there's a lot more people on each side fighting with each other, and we're filling in the holes in set one so that classes that are missing certain things or weak in certain ways, if we can make them better without turning them into another class, then we'll work on that. So yeah, there's some information that I didn't get agreement from everybody else to spoil. But I haven't given any card details away, have I? So I think people will be happy to hear some of that anyway.
I think they will. I think I'm that honestly right there. Just knowing that amount of information is kind of getting me excited.
Excellent.
I think having got a chance to see them in the PFG, the design team's done an excellent job with set 2, and it's going to be awesome. Yeah, I'm quite Yeah, quite confident that whatever will come out in the end is, from what I've seen anyway, it's just going to be superb set 2.
Thank you. And if I get in trouble, well, I did it for the masses, just like I get in trouble with the wife. I get in trouble. Did it for you guys.
All right, so last time we had a rather lengthy discussion of 3CC allies that sort of took over almost our entire episode. But that was a really good and interesting discussion, and it spawned a lot of discussion on the in the discussion thread on the forums. So I want to kind of revisit this topic with you guys again, but instead of talking about 3CC allies, I want to talk about 5 and 6 cost allies, because there's a lot of them and they differ a lot between Human and Shadow and how they're used and what types of decks they're good in. So let's just go around the horn real quick here. What's your favorite 5 or 6 cost ally and why?
Well, my favorite 5 cost ally right now is, even though I like humans somewhat more, is still it's a Shadow one, and it's a Shadow Knight, because I think in maybe 75% of my Shadow decks it's an auto include 4 times. Why? Because I can keep on recycling it, and my opponent just have to play cards on it, and in the meantime I just build up card advantage, and then just prepare for an epic move and try to take the board and the game with that. And the Shadow Knight is just the ally that buys me the time to get to that point.
Yeah, I actually agree as well. Shadow Knight for me, or Batman as we like to call him around our forums.
Yes.
He's versatile. I mean, he hits hard. He's a meat shield that people have to get rid of, otherwise they are facing 5 damage in the one shot. And he has the advantage of bringing back more allies, and you can get a nice loop going where you just keep putting down Shadow Knight after Shadow Knight. And that's not easy for some people or some decks to deal with.
Well, I think one of the small problems he has is the fact that he only has 4 health, and if the ally, the opponent has an ally out of 4 attack, he will just get killed every turn, and you won't get much advantage out of it, except for the 4 damage you save per turn. But that's all you get.
That's true, but sometimes if you get him into a nice loop, then he can be a nice delay tactic while you're building up your shadow energy, or you're building up your resources, so you can drop 2 cards in the one go or something like that. So
yeah, okay,
he'd be too strong with more health.
Yeah, that's the main disadvantage, that if the opponent manages to put him out once without losing anything, if he just has an ally to shoot for 4, then he's probably won the board forever, because you cannot recycle it for free. You just have to play another card and just wait if he's recyclable again, or if just another ally is on top. And since I've started my small analysis, is the question about 5 and 6 allies?
Yes,
So,
allies that cost 5 or more.
Then I would choose Aeon to 5 CC allies. Even if he's not so strong at hitting, I think that he gives too much security against most decks, especially now that Dagger of Unmaking is used less than before, both in rogue decks and in some Magia decks. And I mostly encounter it facing Eladwins. I would choose Aeon.
Well, but I also like Ian a lot, but one problem I have with him is the fact that he doesn't really have an on-summon effect. So if you play him, and the opponent can just counter it with a card like Retreat and play another ally, you're usually in big trouble. Especially if it happens a few times in a game. And with an ally like Shadow Knight, that isn't the case, because you play it, and even if it gets retreated, you still got the card when the Shadow Knight was summoned.
Well, he's really bad to retreat, because if you retreat him, then when you play him, you've got an extra card there. So
yeah, well, that was my point. That was my point.
Yeah.
I don't see that problem with Aeon. Wait, what did I just say?
It's late. It's late at night, everybody. Just so you guys know, it's like 2 a.m. for most of our people here. So
yeah. Anyway, I see that's one problem I have with Aeon. But other than that, I really agree with Otto that in the fact that it's really a very great ally.
yeah, I agree. I think that Aeon is very good, but I actually have to say my favorite is probably Molten Destroyer, just because not only is he big and ugly and can hit people, but no matter what your opponent does to remove him, he's going to cause problems for them. Like, if they have to... He's got 5 health, so they usually can't take him down in just one hit unless they have a tidal wave or a supernova or something. So whenever they hit him twice or 3 times or whatever to get rid of him, that's 3 damage that he's doing, or he's setting allies on fire, even if he dies the very turn that I summon him, which I think is great.
I kind of agree, but I'm not sure if he does enough damage for the cost you paid for it. I mean, you still paid 5 resources, and in the end, sometimes you only do 1 damage, and then I have to ask the question if it was really worth to pay 5 resources to just do 1 or 2 damage.
You could say the same for something like Plasma. You pay 5 damage, and if he gets taken out straight away, then you've paid 5 resources and you've done nothing at all. At least with Molten Destroyer, he's a bit of a deterrent, and he can set allies on fire, and he can do extra damage to mages at Nova and that sort of thing. So Molten Destroyer is actually my second favorite. The only reason I put Batman ahead of him is because he can bring back more Molten Destroyers. So I agree.
Okay, that's some pretty good logic right there. I'll admit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Ducky. I think he's one of the better 5-cost allies there. He can hit pretty hard, 4 damage in 1 shot, and he gets the extra damage as well when you retaliate. If you have 2 of them out there and someone novas, then that really hurts the opposing mage player.
Well, but if I'm going to use it just to counter, I mean, not just to counter, but as a main reason to counter Nova, I would rather use a card like Brutal Minotaur, because it has 6 health and doesn't die because of a Nova. I mean, if the opponent plays Nova and your Brutal Minotaur survives the turn, it can do 6 damage in your turn again, so the opponent just took 11 damage in 2 turns. So that's a lot. I mean, if you use Molten Destroyer to counter Nova, I would rather go for Brutal Minotaur, really. I know it lets you take 2 damage on your own turn when it dies as well, but yeah, well, just a personal preference, I guess. But
yeah, I actually, to be honest, Brutal Minotaur was, whenever I saw the new version of him in 1.5 or 1.3 at the time, I was really excited about him, and I had him in a lot of my decks. But what I started to find was that it really sucked when I was depending on him, and I showed up against a Zaladar deck or something, and it was like, oh, so every time I play Brutal Minotaur, I get to take 8 damage. That sucks.
Yeah, okay, that's really the one matchup versus Elemental that you really have to auto-sack him, but other than that, I don't know. For example,
but I think what Ducky's saying is most decks don't run that many 5-cost or more allies. They're really the ones that you depend on to win the game. And if you use exclusively a Brutal, then when you do come up against a Elemental player, then it's almost an auto loss, because you can't depend on him at all. If you use a Molten Destroyer, then they're still taking some damage at least.
Well, but what if you use it in a deck like a Moonstalker deck? Then you can depend on it, because you can protect it with your ability.
Yeah, true.
That's true. That's I mean, that's a good point. Once again, I will admit my bias that I play mostly mages. So, but
so,
but for example, playing when you're playing Gravebone, for example, you run probably like 5 or 6 cost allies. So when 3 or 4 of them are Brutal Minotaur, and you come up to Zaladar Elementalist, that's shitty.
Yeah, okay, but I'm not saying that you have to run only Brutal Minotaur. You have to complement it with other high-cost allies. So, for example, that you have 3 times Molten Destroyer or something else, and 3 times Brutal Minotaur, or 3 times, or even 4 times Shadow Knight, and only 2 times Brutal Minotaur, but that you use it as an ally that complements the other allies you already have.
But that's why I actually think Molten Destroyer and Shadow Knight complement each other so well. Because every time your opponent takes out a Molten Destroyer and you bring him back, he's just taking more and more damage. Whereas on the flip side, if it's a Brutal Minotaur that keeps getting destroyed that you keep bringing back, that's just 2 damage to you every single time.
Yeah, okay, but Brutal Minotaur is more difficult to destroy. I mean, you don't play it if you know it's going to be destroyed.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. Mostly, that Brutal Minotaur just took a trip out of most of my decks, only because he doesn't have a guaranteed effect that will happen. Because Like you said, you don't usually play only one 5-cost ally, but you don't usually play like 10 slots of your deck with 5-cost allies either. So in most decks, say I'm playing maybe 3 Brutal Minotaurs and 3 Shadow Knights or something. But then if I run up in a matchup where, like against Elementals, where he's an auto sack unless you can haste him at the end of the game or something, or something like that. Whenever he's not useful, then that just kills like half of my win cards, and I don't like that.
Yeah, okay, but I think it's a very good card to use in certain specific decks. For example, the Moonstalker I just mentioned, and also in a deck that uses Portal. I think that Brutal Minotaur is really very powerful there.
Yeah, that's true. I will definitely give you the Portal thing. Brutal Minotaur is an auto in a Portal deck.
I mean, what you can even do is play Brutal Minotaur, attack the opponent's hero. He plays some allies, then even Nova, and your Brutal Minotaur won't die, and you can attack the other hero again, for example.
Yeah.
So, am I the only guy again who likes the human fatties again?
Gondorian, what's your favorite fatty?
I think the better question is which one's bad, because we balanced the whole set to make them all great. So if they're not all great, then we failed. And I can't really think of a bad one. I guess maybe Erica.
Yeah, maybe Erica.
I do like them all. Sandworm I'm liking at the moment because of the counter to Ankle Breaker and Dagger of Unmaking. I see more Sandworms now than I used to.
Yeah, I actually kind of agree with Sandworm. I forgot a bit about him.
What about Oggy? No one really uses him anymore.
It depends on the deck. Some elemental decks use him. Some wolves may use him, especially Moonstalker. But definitely, yes, in the most shadow decks, it's not worth to sack one more card.
As an epic counterpart to Aeon, I think he's definitely not as strong as an Aeon.
Yeah, I think we overbuffed Aeon, really. I am the designer of Ogloth. I mean, I didn't come up with a name. I hate it. But the original card had a completely different ability, but it was too big to write on a card. And also it was crazy overpowered as well. You can just destroy any card. The current version is one that I designed, and throughout the PFG, we were initially worried that it might be too strong and so on, because it's epic, so you want to make it great, but you don't want it to be an auto-include in every deck. So it's a really delicate balance that you need to get right with Ogloth, and he certainly has niche uses. Well, thankfully, he's not everywhere.
My problem with Ogloth is not the fact that it's not a good ally, because it's a great ally in my opinion, but the fact that it's unique. Every time he just gets disabled by an attack of a raven or a crippling bow or whatever, he becomes completely useless, and you can get rid of him yourself. I mean, there are some cards to get rid of him, but it's not that easy. And also, you just can't play another one because it's a unique, and it doesn't have another effect anymore that protects, or like Aeon, if he gets crippled, he just keeps protecting the other allies that are already on the board. But that's not the case with Ogloth. It's more the offensive kind of ally. But once he's disabled, he just becomes completely useless, and that's why I don't use him.
That's the general theme, though, isn't it, of Shadow? They're big and threatening, and if you can deal with it quickly, then you can breathe a sigh of relief for a minute. But if I'm playing Ogloth in a deck, then I would have put something in to free him up, like a sacrificial lamb or something. So that's one way around having a crippled Ogloth or captured Ogloth on the board. So I think you've just got to be more inventive with your decks to get the best value out of him. Thankfully, we haven't seen any OP combos yet in 1.5 that people are going, oh, that's ruined the game, you've all failed, design team, So
well, there are people making those threads, but they are being corrected by other players. There's plenty of people complaining about all kinds of things being OP.
Yeah. But it's when everybody speaks up about the same one and starts. But it seems okay so far. So that was the big risk. If we'd have made something which broke the game when we're going to print the physical cards, that would have been terrible. So we erred on the side of caution with him, and he is a potent ally in the right situations, but he's not crazy good, thankfully.
Yeah, I think the player focus group helped a lot in that. We had a lot of broken combos at first.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Well, we had a
Definitely,
Shadow
there was-
Protector. That was the problem. Cobra Demon.
Yeah,
was,
Cobra Demon
Yeah,
and
Cobra Demon.
and Oglot in a Moonstalker.
yeah, that was horrific.
Well, for those that don't know, Cobra Demon was a protector, shadow protector at first,
And could
not a
poison the
defender.
hero.
Yeah, and he could poison the hero. So that's just as a reference for the people that
Protector
don't know.
part was a typo on the original spoiler that we got. Calm down. So new people to Shadow Era might not know who Calm Down was, but he was the designer of the Rogue class. That's when he really started designing cards. Before 1.27, he didn't design any cards. Kyle did them all. Then Calm Down came on board, designed the Rogues, and then designed the rest of the cards that went into 1.5 that we balanced. He also changed some of the hero abilities. I've lost what I was talking about now. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
It's not fine. It was an important point that I was working towards.
Oh, broken combos. You were talking about broken combos.
Broken combos. Yeah, that's it. We would have faced a lot of criticism as well if we'd have made mistakes. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, Ogloth is not by any means a useless ally, but I don't think he's going to make anybody's favorite list either. So he's balanced.
Well, it can
You
change.
would
I
just
think it can change.
expect the next set, because it may surprise you how Ogloth may be better than now.
That's entirely true. In fact, that's one thing that I find very exciting about trading card games in general is the way that you can design future cards to bring up the usefulness of older cards. I always enjoy finding those combos. And if you guys on the design team manage to make Campfire Stories be like a tier 1 auto include in the next expansion, I will be really happy.
I'll give him a medal.
Okay,
All right,
let's get them foiled.
Yes, foil Campfire Stories. Let's make it happen.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to mention about the discussion of the 5 and 6 CC allies, is that a lot of the allies we talked about were really very good allies in combination with something. For example, the Shadow Knight is very good in combination with himself, so but multiple copies. But one ally that really stands out, in my opinion, that's very good alone with
Raven?
Yeah, Raven, indeed. It can beat every other ally with no help from any other card.
That's true. Although, an interesting thing about Raven is that pretty much everybody who plays Lance uses Raven because she can be hasted, and that is so ridiculously powerful. But do you guys see a lot of Raven outside of Lance decks? Because I was thinking about this the other day. I don't use Raven if I can't haste her, like, ever. Does anybody else?
I've seen some quite good Ladwin builds with Raven. In fact, Raven heavy builds who just focused around her. And I guess it's about control decks with diagram making and Raven, which in the end causes opponent to be crippled totally. I don't use that archetype so much, but I've seen it to be quite effective sometimes.
I think one of the big reasons why it's not used that much is because of the support weapons that are available right now. We have a lot of mages on the quick match right now, and a lot of these you can use either retreat or dagger of unmaking, and we also have a lot of rogues going around, and they can just use ankle breaker and just completely make the ally useless. And in that regard, Sandworm is maybe better because he can deal with other items better. But in an ally versus ally battle, Raven is the best ally. But well, it often doesn't come to that point. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. That's probably the environment where people can immediately deal with your fatties in some way is probably part of the reason why earlier in a discussion we were talking about how we all seem to like allies that have an immediate effect. If I'm going to pay 5 or 6 resources for this card, I want it to do something now. So if I can't give it haste, then it has to have a comes into play effect of some kind, or be like Molten Destroy and react to everything that happens to it. And because right now it's so easy for people to just disable your allies as soon as they see them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, true.
I think I agree with that.
So in general, who do you guys feel has better 5 and 6 cost allies, human or shadow, or do you think it's about equal?
Shadow, without a doubt.
Yeah, I agree also with Shadow. I mean, human have some nice combinations with Earth and Protector and Aeon, and Raven in general is also okay. But I think Shadow has a lot more very viable options.
The Shadow allies in general don't need combinations. I mean, the human, we all agree, I think, that the human weenies are much better just because of the combinations and that you can pull off with them and how well they work together. And I think to a certain extent that's the same thing with the human fatties as well. But the Shadow allies all work in isolation. You know, they're all pretty powerful and pretty scary, as Gondorian was saying, that, you know, you need to deal with them immediately, otherwise they can really hurt you.
Yeah, and that's actually one interesting thing that I've noticed about the dynamics of the human and shadow cards. It seems like the humans pack a much bigger punch earlier on than the shadow allies do, and the shadow allies are just kind of sitting there surviving. But then when you get later in the game, you have the opposite is true, where the human allies are just kind of really big and difficult to get rid of, and the shadow allies are really tearing it up and doing lots of damage and having a big splashy effect on things.
But Aeon is one ally that really helps with the small allies, so it's easier to take out the shadow big allies. If you play an Aeon, your other small allies like Jasmine or Priest of the Light or so will be more effective in taking out the other players' big allies. So I think Aeon helps really in that helps balancing that part out. That Shadow has better high cost allies.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, that you know, the fatties on the human side really do need to sort of work in combination. I mean, if you just had Aeon by himself, he's not that scary compared to if you just have Molten Destroyer or a Brutal Minotaur out by themselves. I mean, if you just had the one card isolated, you'd take those shadow fatties over the human ones.
Yeah,
No one
I
mentioned Plasma
agree.
Behemoth.
Yeah,
no one mentioned
Plasma,
PB.
of course. Yeah.
Well, but
I mean, he's
still
even
great.
scarier.
Well,
He's still great.
I don't really like Plasma Behemoth, and the reason why is because it costs resources to activate every turn. I mean, yes, in isolation it has a 7 damage output, which is indeed very high, but if you use that ability, it won't be possible to play another high cost card, and that's why I like the other Shadow allies a lot more. For example, if you play a Molten Destroyer, then you can the turn after that just play a Shadow Knight and then again a Molten Destroyer and just keep on going. But if you play a Plasma Behemoth and you use the ability, the next turn you can either use nothing or just a small card.
So it's good for the decks that don't have so much card drawing.
Exactly.
So you pretty much invest on protecting a Plasma Behemoth.
Yeah, okay,
like,
but you don't even have to have that much card draw. I mean, if you have 4 Shadow Knights and that's all you have as card draw, you can still keep on playing a card every turn.
Well, that happens if you are a Mage or if you generally have a board wipe, because if the opponent has a simple Bell out and you just keep on playing Shadow Knights, you will just find yourself in 3 turns facing Bella and 3 more allies at least.
The thing about Plasma Behemoth to me is, originally when I first started playing the game back in the day, he was actually my favorite ally in the game. I love him, especially, I know that you have to pay resources every turn to use his ability, but the way I look at that is just straight card advantage. Like, I get a Fireball without using a card from my hand every turn that he's on the board. But the problem to me is going back to the whole, it's very easy to disable allies as soon as they come out, and he doesn't have an immediate effect. So even in the decks that I use Plasma Behemoth, in a lot of matchups, I just sacrifice him because I know if I throw him out in front of Lance or Serena or Zaladar or Elementalist or who knows, he's just going to die, and I have wasted my turn. And sometimes not even, like if Lance already has an ankle breaker out, for example, I may not even cost my opponent any resources to deal with him, and that I don't like that.
Yeah, there are other allies that are indeed better with dealing with that. I mean, if you play Molten Destroyer, at least your opponent will take 1 damage every time he hits you.
Right.
Well, the truth is that if you're a Shadow and you face a Lance with an ankle breaker out, you pretty much have no choice but destroying it. You know, even if you have a Molten or a Plasma Behemoth or whatever in your hand, if Lance which is pretty much one of the best 3 heroes at least, has Ankle Breaker out, which in this meta seems to be one of the most strong weapons. Then the combination of the two is too much strong to handle. With the Behemoth.
I also think that you can swarm a weapon like that. I mean, if you have a weapon of your own and you play some cards like a Gargoyle, I think you can take it out without destroying it up front.
But then all your gargoyles are useless because they don't do any damage.
Well, you have to use
sacrificial lamb,
and you have to
lamb chop. Yeah, you do a lamb chop.
Lamb chop or lamb slam.
Yeah, that.
Ask the audience.
That'll be a great
lamb
discussion
chop
topic.
or lamb slam.
What would I will anyway. You also have to play enough allies. For example, an ally like Death Mage, he doesn't get crippled because he got hit once by an ankle breaker. And I think Shadow in general has a lot of good responses to the ankle breaker. Well, except brutes. Brutes are really useless once they get hit once.
No, I mean I still like brutes. You go out there and it's not a very big threat, but it'll take 1 damage off of the ankle breaker, and then it's just gonna sit there until I use a sacrificial lamb. And I may be biased in this thing too because I pretty much use sacrificial lamb in every single shadow deck for this exact reason. So whenever a gargoyle or brute has 2 health and 0 attack, that just doesn't bother me. I'm just like, oh hey, it's a free bad Santa later.
Oh, well, but with brute it only gives 2 cards.
Oh, okay, that's true. Unless I have Wrath of the Forest out.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, I don't really use the sacrificial lambs that much. Probably just a preference, but oh hey, I rather use a bad Santa because often my opponent's hand is already full anyway. So yeah. Especially a lance who just keeps on destroying it. If I can't get rid of the ill-gotten gains, I start to just don't care about the card advantage anymore. Just and make sure I have enough cards myself in my hand at all times.
I still can't believe that people who don't use Sacrificial Lamb exist. That card is so good to me. I love it so much.
Well, but I have it 2 times in a Moonstalker I have right now with Wrath of the Forest. But the times I use it, I don't know. It's in 1 game out of 5 maybe that I can use it. So I don't really think that's enough for me to make it in a deck.
Okay, I'm gonna need everybody else chime in on this one. Sacrificial Lamb, good in every deck or only good sometimes? Go.
Only good sometimes, definitely. You know.
What?
Most decks.
Definitely.
Gotta ask why you need the draw. I mean, it probably means that you're playing cheaper allies and you're unloading your hand more than people who don't value it so much. They don't need the draw. Well, they've got cards in their deck that are going to make an impact on the game rather than refill your hand because you've gone for maybe the early rush or something with the mages. So I guess that's why.
I suppose that
in my opinion.
I think he's good in most decks, not every deck. I mean, I don't run him.
What deck is it not good in? That's my question.
Well, I don't run him in my Moonstalker deck because I run Wolven Tracker knowing that I can hide him and get some card draw that way.
Or Bella.
Or Bella, yes. You know, some portal decks might run Bella.
Ally-less Dark Claw.
Okay. Okay, I concede to ally-less decks. They do not need Sacrificial Lamb.
Yeah, but it's when the opponent uses a Dimension Ripper and you get an ally of your opponent and then it gets disabled, so you can use Sacrificial Lamb on it to get some draw.
There you go.
Yeah.
But no, my luck, they would steal my Sacrificial Lamb.
Oh, okay, that's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But the truth is that you have 2 warriors who have Blood Frenzy, which quite good. You have the mages who use Tome of Knowledge, and you have Shadow Hunters who have Wrath of the Forest, which pretty much survives most of the matchups. Usually not against lands, but in most of their other matchups, it may see some turns of drawing. So Sacrificial Lamb is pretty much a reset button if you see that things are pretty bad going against you. because using it on a brute is not so good. You use a card, you use 2 resources, and you just draw 2 other cards. Anyway,
if you have a Wrath of the Forest down, I think it's a pretty ridiculous way to draw cards because you get 4 cards in one hit, and you could go from having a really bleak outlook and being just dominated by your opponent having card advantage over you, to filling your whole hand up and then having lots of cards to play.
This is the thing that I don't understand, is that everybody will there's nobody who thinks Bad Santa sucks. Everyone's like, oh my god, it's so amazing of a card. Sacrificial Lamb is a one-sided Bad Santa.
No.
I don't see what sucks about that.
No, but I don't think you can look at it that way, because you're always giving up some form of board control. I mean, yes, of course, there are a lot of times there are disabled allies on the board, but there are also a lot of times that you don't have disabled ally on the board, and in those situations, the card is really not that useful if you're giving up the board. Bad Santa doesn't do that. I mean, you can always rely on it for it to give you 3 cards to get that crucial card you need. I mean, yes, it also gives your opponent 3 cards, but sometimes you just don't care about the cards your opponent gets, as long as you have the cards you need. Well, I think Bad Santa is more reliable in that part than Sacrificial Lamp, because also when using Sacrificial Lamp, you use 2 cards to draw the cards, and with Bad Santa you only use 1 card, which is a big difference to me.
And you can use it whenever. You just don't have to find an ally out so that it is sacrificable.
It's an excellent top deck late game, isn't it? So if you really need something good, that comes up. You spend 2 on that. You've got 3 more cards. You've just kind of skipped ahead 3 turns, really, if you'd have only been drawing 1 card. Whereas Sacrificial Lamb, if you're really desperate and you haven't got any allies out because they've just been massacred and you're looking for that supernova or something, then you get Sacrificial Lamb instead, then that sucks, obviously. So Bad Santa is the late game card that can turn games if it draws you the right thing.
If you have an empty hand and you are in late turns and you just have to sacrifice a 3 resource ally, and you only have Sacrificial Lamb in your head, or it's 1 card or 2, it means that pretty much you have lost board control in late turns and you just have a Winnie out. Because I cannot imagine a deck that your opponent has allies out and you have a Fatty out and a Winnie out, and you can just sacrifice the Winnie to continue getting the board. It's not so often to happen.
What if? Okay, so yeah, I think it's very often actually. So let's say that I am. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't use Sacrificial Lamb as my primary draw in any deck. Like, say in a mage deck, I'll run 4 research and 2 Sacrificial Lamb or something like that. But then, especially once we get to the late game, I run into situations all the time where maybe an opponent has Soul Seeker or Ankle Breaker or something out, and then I take my Gargoyle and I just smash right into it, take a durability off, get some damage in, and then when that Gargoyle is all disabled or half dead or whatever, I use Sacrificial Lamb. I have 6 or 7 resources, so I can play stuff, whatever I would draw, just like Bad Santa, and I don't really lose that much because I still used the ally on the board. I'm going to draw something to replace that ally that I'm hoping will give me better position than what I had with just that ally before, and because that ally's already had an effect this turn, I don't feel like I've wasted him at all.
Yeah, okay, but let's imagine that you have that Gargoyle, you smash it in an Ankle Breaker, and instead you play Bad Santa instead of Sacrificial Lamb. Then you can draw 3 cards, still play a 5-cost card, and your opponent will still have to deal with a Gargoyle because it will still have 3 life or something, or 1 attack if it attacks an Ankle Breaker, and your opponents will still have to attack that ally. Even though it's not that big of a threat, it will save you some life on your hero, and your opponent will have to waste the durability shots of his weapon to take it completely out. And that's one big thing for me. I'm not saying that Sacrificial Lamp is a bad card, not at all, because it's very useful in decks that if you don't want your opponents to draw more cards on you, you probably will want to use Sacrificial Lambs, but if you don't care about it, or if you just are looking for 1 crucial card, I think Bad Santa is a lot better.
I guess that's kind of true too. I do tend to build a lot of control decks. I'm thinking in my head as you're saying this, I'm like, well, yeah, okay, I could have a 3 health, 1 damage Gargoyle that's going to be disabled for a turn, Or I could deny my opponent 3 cards. I would rather deny them 3 cards in like every single situation I can imagine. So I guess that might just be the types of decks that I built that makes me think that.
Yeah, but with a Sacrificial Lamp, you just draw 2 and he does draw 1 if you face a Lance who cripple your deck with Ankle Breaker. So you just get an advantage of 1 card, which is pretty much the one that you used for playing it.
Well, but that's also a very specific scenario, Otto, isn't it?
Yes, but we were talking about gargoyles that are hit by Ankle Breakers. And Lance is very popular.
Yeah, okay.
If you kill the gargoyle, he's going to get 1 from ill-gotten gains, isn't he? Is that what you're referring to, Otto?
Yes, he's getting 1, you are getting 2, and you just wasted 1 by Sacrificial Lamp. Plus, you wasted 1 hit with the gargoyle. Anyway, I can understand that it fits some strategies, but I don't think that it can fit every strategy of...
It's great, it's a well-balanced card. I mean, all of these cards, they work in some places.
Yes,
that's the point. There's some cards which are useless in all the decks, but not many, thankfully. But I guess because NinjaDucky plays mostly mages, then it works for him. So,
yeah.
Are you in the World Championships, NinjaDucky?
I am in the World Championships.
So I guess your opponents will be expecting mages, right? You better start practicing with other.
I'll tell you, this is how reliable it is that I play mages. I just was actually in a pop-up tournament 2 days ago where you had to play a different class every round that you hadn't played before, and I managed to not have mages taken up by the end, but at the end I could play almost every tier 1 class. I think I'd already used Lance, so I couldn't do that. But like I had a lot of options available, and my opponent chose a specific mage counter Amber because they just knew. Like that I'll be having a mage deck because it's the last match and I haven't played mages yet, so obviously I'm going to be playing mages.
Didn't you win
with Sacrificial Lamb?
Didn't you win that pop-up tournament, or are you talking about another one?
No, I actually did win that pop-up tournament against Samuel J. It was a very, very, very close match. We ended up drawing 1 game. I was actually a little bit surprised that I won, but I was using a Magia with Sacrificial Lamb, and I think that made the difference.
Yeah, okay. I think it can help in certain circumstances, like if you have a completely disabled ally with a crippling blow on it or something. I think okay, that's a good situation to use it.
Yep. All right, so I guess that's we're getting pretty late in the episode, and that's a good place to end that discussion. Now let's move on. We have a listener question this week. This is something we'd like to do every episode, but we haven't managed to get very many responses for it until now. But Barca Fan has a question for us. Are there any cards you think will need to be banned in the future because they might become problematic as time goes on and they might restrict how new cards can be developed?
There's two definite. The first is Into the Forest, and the second one I think is Feedback. If you look at Into the Forest, it can't be destroyed. It can't, you can't remove it. You can't destroy it. You can't target the hero. And as better armors and better bows come out for, say, Gwen, that card's just going to potentially become ridiculous. Even for Victor, if he can continue to recurse that card and keep bringing it back, then you're looking at a very, very strong card. And the second one with Feedback, I think as you get more combinations possible, as the card pool increases, the ability to reset your resources and potentially play, 20 resource turn, if you've got Bad Santa in there, it's just going to become ridiculous.
Okay, but with the Into the Forest, the hero becomes untargetable. Okay, true, but every card it has, like the weapons or so, are still targetable. So in the future there will also be more item destruction, and I think the weapons will still be quite vulnerable. So I'm not that sure that it will give a problem. And Feedback, Feedback. Probably it's not that easy to get a massive turn out of Feedback, but it might get problematic. I'm not sure about it.
Did you watch the latest Epic A1 game?
Yeah, I did actually.
With Blanket?
Yeah,
the combo was awesome. if someone from the audience hasn't seen it yet, you must just jump right now on the topic about the Epic Games and see the combo that he managed to pull out. I don't remember how much resources he used in the same turn.
Yeah, probably something
And-
like 15 or so.
Yeah.
If you've played against his deck, he does that every game. I mean,
he used two bad Santas, I think, a feedback, a mind control, a plasma behemoth, and and a Winnie, I think. It was
yeah, but what I'm saying is he can do that almost every game because with the bad Santas, you're digging 3 cards deep, and then you just reset your
Yes.
resources, and then you dig
Exactly.
another 3 deep. And
Mhm.
as more cards come out that work with that combination, the ability to just reset your resources up to whatever you want is pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's pretty much the basic logic of Elementalis back when it was Tier 1 hero.
Yeah, but that was just because mind control and transference were broken.
And because it was the 30-card environment.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
I think it's okay to have really strong cards that come out at like turn 9 or 10, though. I mean, like, if somebody has a few allies out and they play King's Pride, then it can be pretty much game over. So feedback gives you a lot of benefit late on, but by then, I mean, anybody can win anywhere. I mean, if someone pulls out that combo, then they deserve to win that game, don't they?
Yes.
Well, in this current card pool, yes, but I mean, what I'm saying is in the future, when you're starting to add really strong cards that can combine with that, it's too easy to pull off a bad Santa and feedback loop. If you have a look at the way Blanket Effect, I mean, if you have a look at the way he plays, he can basically at about turn 6 or 7 just start pulling out these ridiculous combos. It's not that late, and the reason is just because a feedback bad Santa combination only costs 5. So if you've got 7 resources, you can start just playing and stocking up cards. And I've started playing around with his deck and I'm really enjoying it. And it's with 7 resources, you can pull off 2 mind controls. 8 resources, you can pull off 2 mind controls in one turn, and it's really quite amazing what you can do with that card. Actually, I never really realized how strong it was until I started to see what Blanket Effect could do with it.
I'm not so sure about feedback personally needing to be banned in the future because I kind of agree with Gondorian. I think that as long as it doesn't become brokenly useful until like turn 8 or 9, then you've earned it at that point. If you have the cards and you can dig for them efficiently enough to make them available that you can pull off this crazy combo and win in the next 2 turns by playing 6 cards per turn, that's just how your deck works, and I'm okay with it.
I mean, it might not need to be banned if the deck size minimum gets increased.
Oh, let's not talk about that. I do agree with Into the Forest. I think that card is going to become problematic in the future, and it's going to need to be dealt with in some way. If it remains the way it is right now, where Severed Ties can't remove it, because with Severed Ties not being able to remove it, that means that virtually every answer that comes out for attachments can't remove it, unless there's some kind of, destroy all attachments card.
Or cards that work in advance, like your opponent can't attach attachments to your hero to his hero or something like that.
Right, but as long as there's not right now, there's not too many just like sweeping effects like that don't need to be targeting. So if someone's untargetable, they can't have almost anything happen to them. And if you can't remove Into the Forest easily, then at one cost, that's going to become crazy, I think. I also kind of wonder personally about Shadow Font. It seems like that limits... It does cost resources to use and things, but it seems like it limits how powerful shadow heroes can actually have their abilities become, because you can't ever count on the idea like, oh, well, this guy will never be able to use his ability twice in the first 6 turns, because if his power is good enough to put 4 Shadow Fonts in his deck, he will consistently use his ability twice in the first 5 or 6 turns.
Well, the point is that we've discussed it at the PFG quite a lot before 1.5 hit the ground, and we pretty much came to the conclusion that none of the abilities used right now are more expensive than a Shadow Font. If you take down abilities and you just compare them to cards that make the same effect, they're pretty much the cost of Shadow Font, or even less. Especially for Graveborn that it has been discussed. Even there, the equation was not broken, at least.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
but
I
right now, but in the future when more heroes come out, and I think what he's saying is, for example, if he had Nishaven with the Shadow Font, that could almost just be what he needs to become tier 1 anyway. It could just be too broken to be able to have him reset the board whenever he wanted to. So I think what he's saying is in the future it might limit the abilities that new Shadow heroes get, or if you do bring out a super strong Shadow ability, say something that costs 5 or 6 Shadow energy, you might need to ban that card.
Well, the point is that I will try to say that as much secretly as I can. The point is to be able to play with your Shadow energy in the future, more than you can play now. I don't know if Gondorian has to add something here, because I wouldn't like to say something that I cannot say.
About Shadow Font?
No, generally about Shadow energy. Isn't the point that it gets to be used and played with more in the future? You know, spend some, earn some with cards.
Yeah. There'll be more options for spending it, so it won't be a case of if somebody gains some, they're going to spend it on their hero ability. They'll have options, and there'll be perhaps cards which you need to spend your Shadow energy on to get rid of in some set in the future, maybe. So
in an unspecified time frame, these things may or may not occur.
So there are ways to make heroes depend less on their Shadow abilities and spend Shadow energy in different ways, and it's great to have this other currency that can be used as well as just resources, because you want to play cards from your hand with the resources. So if you can have something out that can spend Shadow energy, then things get interesting. As a tangent, I've got a new Nishaven deck. I'm using Marshland Sentinel and Wrath of Summer. It's really, people don't expect it, and you can use Marshland Sentinel and Wrath of the Forest on the same turn to, like, first bring an ally's strength down to 0, and also ping them for 1 damage and set them on fire.
Do you mean Wrath of Summer, right?
Did I say Wrath of the Forest?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
you did.
Wrath of Summer. Sorry, yeah. How could I have Wrath of the Forest in Nishaven?
Yeah.
If I could have, first of all, if I could have Wrath of the Forest in Nishaven, that would be amazing. And second of all, if Wrath of the Forest set people on fire, I don't even know what I think anymore.
You can edit that out, Ryan. Yeah. Change that to say Wrath of Summer.
I remember you playing with Wrath of Summer when you faced Sisyphus. No, when you faced Lying Dragon, right?
Yeah, I was expecting rogues, and he played something else, didn't he? He played an evil amber deck. But the Wrath of Summer was still pretty effective. He even commented on it. I think it's an overlooked card, and if there are any 2 health allies out there, then you can, or even 3 health, then you can zap them for 1, then give them a whack with your hero, and then they'll die next turn to a blaze. And also, or maybe next turn you can just zap them again for 1, and then they'll be a blaze next turn. So I find it really effective.
Or even 5 health allies, you use the ability and then you use Lightning Strike and they will die next turn as well.
If you use a Nishaven, then...
No, I mean with Lightning Strike. You use a Lightning Strike and then you use the Wrath of Summer and they die, and the 5 health ally dies next turn as well.
And also Wrath of Summer, you can ping their armor with it, ping their weapons. It's a great card that I don't think many people have realized that it's changed, actually, because it was a rather subtle buff of the card that we did. But I think we'll see more of it in the future.
I think going back to the listener question, what Ducky was saying about Shadow Font, I think still the issue is that it does limit what sort of abilities you can bring out. You can't bring out these epic Shadow abilities that maybe cost 6 Shadow energy and you know.
Why not? I mean, if you use Shadow Font, it doesn't mean you can use your ability next turn. It gives 3 Shadow energy, but if you have epic abilities of 6 Shadow energy, that doesn't mean that you will have to be able you'll be able to use that ability next turn.
But
That means you can use it on turn 4.
Yes.
Because the soonest you can play it is turn 4. And by then you've accumulated enough shadow energy that you just use it. And
what will
if
the
it's that game-changing...
be, though? If it's like a complete wipe, well, by turn 4, they won't have much out.
Yeah, I mean,
So I
also,
guess we'll just have to plan it.
If it's something like just take out a 5 or a 6 cost ally, but you fasten it up a bit with Shadow Font, I don't think you'll be much better off with Shadow Font than you are without Shadow Font.
Well, let me phrase it a little bit differently than what I envision the problem being is that in the future you can already see there are already cards that cost shadow energy and that do things with shadow energy that you have to choose to use them instead of your hero ability, and this also contributes to sort of keeping the hero ability costs down. We don't see there's only one hero ability that costs more than 4, but the issue that I foresee in the future with Shadow Font is that shadow abilities have to cost more shadow energy for the same level of effectiveness as a human one, because the shadow player could play Shadow Font, which then leads to a problem with how much do these items and other cards that use shadow energy. There's going to be a problem there, because then the shadow heroes will get to use their shadow abilities less often than the human counterparts, unless they're all playing Shadow Font, which forces them to play Shadow Font. And if you make the abilities efficient enough on the shadow side, then every shadow player that plays for Shadow Font will have a huge advantage there. So I think that's a weird line to try to walk.
Well, but in the future we can also have human cards that add shadow energy. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that shadow is in the advantage.
Well, the point
we are talking about future anyway. I mean,
yeah, I mean this is all just idle speculation anyhow. But
well, there are two ways to see it. One is that Shadow Font truly is a card with a big question mark beside, because it really may mess some combos in the future, and if we don't pay too much attention, something may get overpowered. But the point is that every ability in the game is countable. You know, you can count it and compare it to something that is paid for some resources. When you are Zagatar, your ability costs 4 shadow energy, and it does the same thing as a 4 resource card, you know, like Lightning Strike. So every ability is pretty much countable. And if you have abilities that are truly counted in a fair way, then playing Shadow Font is not overpowered, in my opinion. You just buy something that was going to be bought for that amount of shadow energy. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, I agree.
Moonstalker's a problem, though. When you can lock the board for 7 turns, that's pretty horrid. Especially if you're solo Darklaw, and then you just can't do anything.
Everyone has some
just a bad
matchups.
It's a bad matchup,
yeah.
Exactly.
There are bad matchups, but that's not the point. If you are Moonstalker and you want to lock the deck for 7 turns, you're not going to do anything against an opponent who has Retreat, who has a Burn, who has too many cards, who has Assassination.
Has Wrath of Summer.
Yeah, of course.
I beat a Moonstalker 3-0 the other day. Yeah, I was using Nish. So
it's not exactly a broken card. It's like it's just a broken matchup. You know, Moonstalker with nothing more than that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, if we have out of control shadow abilities in the future, we will have a lot more problems than just Shadow Font, I think. So I don't think that Shadow Font specifically will be that big of a problem.
Personally, I wish that Shadow Font didn't exist, but it was already out there, it was already released, and when we were balancing, we were trying not to nerf too many cards, and also people raised the issues with Shadow Font quite late in the process when we balanced everything else. And if something does need to be banned in the future, then we will ban it for the good of the game. But I think if somebody comes up with an amazing combo and starts using it, I reckon there will be counters out there already in the card pool. I know there are counters already in set 1 for ability spamming, and there'll be counters in set 2 as well. So in one particular game, you might go on quick match and get absolutely hammered by this thing, but then somebody will copy the deck and so on. But soon the meta will shift. So as long as there are enough options to get in the way of it, then whoever's using that deck, it won't be as consistent for them anymore, and they'll probably move away from it. So I think having the counters out there prevents us from needing to ban cards, because you can't depend on a deck for a period of weeks or months. It won't become the dominant one because things will shift. That's my optimistic hope. Anyway, that's the theory.
But
It already happens. We saw it with Gravebone. What happened in the PFG in the first days of, or first 1 or 2 weeks when 1.5 hit the live server. And then now it's very rare to see a Gravebone, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, just we're kind of going long here now, so let's wrap it up. But I do want to point out that I don't think that anything is broken around Shadowfont now, and I don't expect anything to become broken in any kind of the near future at all. But I think it is worth pointing out that my concern is that it makes the game more difficult to design correctly, and Gondorian just went on record as saying he wishes that Shadowfont didn't exist, which I think is that's kind of what I'm saying.
It's a challenge, though, isn't it? It's a challenge.
Yes, it's a card with a big question mark.
It's true. All right, well, we are pretty much at our time limit here, and I'm sure that for whoever's in late time zones right now, they want to be going to bed. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. But let's take the discussion thread. I want to know what you guys think about what's your favorite 5 or 6 cost ally? Why do you like them? And also, what do you think about Shadowfont? Do you think it's going to be a problem for the design team in the future, or do you think everything's going to be fine with it? Let us know in the discussion thread. Let's have a great time. Until next time, this is A1 Alliance, signing out.